It's strange how something as small as $80 can change everything. Not in some grand, life-altering way, not a lottery win or a lucky stock tip. No, for me, $80 was the price of my freedom. I just didn't realize it at the time. I was 23, freshly graduated and clinging to the excitement of my first real job at a scrappy little tech startup. The paycheck wasn't impressive, but the experience was invaluable. I was learning fast, dreaming big, and quietly sketching out the early vision of building something on my own. My parents, however, didn't share my enthusiasm. "Olivia, we need to talk," my mother said one evening, her voice crackling through the phone. I was still at the office, hunched over my laptop, debugging a piece of code that, though I didn't know it then, would become the cornerstone of my future company. "Your father and I are a bit tight this month. We need $80 for the cable bill." It wasn't the first call like this. Ever since I'd started working, they'd been dipping into my bank account, $30 here, $40 there. It always seemed small, until I looked at the full picture and realized how much I'd given, how much I'd lost. "Mom, I can't," I said gently, but with a firmness I hadn't used before. "I already helped with the electricity bill last week, and the car payment before that. I need to start saving for myself." Silence. Then my father's voice cut through, hard and sharp. He'd clearly been listening in. "Your future," he scoffed, "working at that worthless startup? We paid for your education, and this is how you repay us?" I closed my eyes. I could still see the student loan statements in my inbox, under my name, not theirs. "Dad, I paid for college. I'm still paying for it. And we gave you a roof over your head," my mom shot back, her voice rising. "We raised you, and now you can't help with $80? What kind of daughter does that make you?" Something cracked open inside me, years of guilt, quiet sacrifices, and financial pressure condensed into a single, sharp truth. "I'm a daughter who needs to stand on her own," I said, my voice steadier than my heart, "and it's time you did too." "How dare you?" my father roared. "If you don't send that money right now, you're dead to us, you hear me? Dead." I clenched the phone in my hand, feeling tears gather in my eyes. "I hear you, Dad," I said quietly. "I hear you, clearly, for the first time." "Then make your choice," my mom said coldly, "your family, or your precious money." I thought of the code I'd just written, the dreams I hadn't dared to speak aloud, the life I wanted, desperately, to build for myself. "I choose my future," I said. "Then you're no longer our daughter," my father snapped. "Don't contact us again." And with that, the line went dead. That night, I stayed late at the office, writing through the tears. Every keystroke was soaked in pain, but it was also something more, resolve. That same code would eventually evolve into the algorithm that launched my company, but at the time, all I knew was that I'd just lost my family over $80. The months that followed were a blur of quiet heartbreak and relentless work. My parents made good on their threat, blocked my number, returned letters unopened, and spread the word to the rest of the family. Suddenly, I went from golden child to ghost. My cousins, aunts, uncles, all turned their backs. But something unexpected happened. Without the emotional and financial weight of constant obligation, I began to breathe. I began to grow. The small savings I'd managed to keep became my seed money. The hours I used to spend fixing my parents' emergencies became time I poured into building something of my own. People noticed. 6 months after that final phone call, my boss asked me into his office. "Olivia, this algorithm you created, it's a game changer. We want it to anchor our next big release, and we want you to lead the project." I dove in. Every missed holiday became another prototype, every unanswered call, another line of code. The pain of being cut off fueled a quiet, burning determination. A year later, I had a decision to make. The company wanted to buy the algorithm outright. The offer was generous, enough to wipe out my student debt and still leave me financially secure. But something in me said no. This wasn't just a piece of code anymore. It was my beginning, my freedom, my proof that I could build a life on my own terms. And I wasn't going to sell that. I made a bold move. I proposed launching my own company, using my algorithm as the foundation, and partnering with them instead of selling it. To my surprise, they said yes. Even more surprising, they invested. That's how Olive was born, in a cramped office with flickering lights, 3 desks, and a whole lot of belief. There was me, a junior developer I'd mentored, And a sales rep who'd bought into my vision before I had the funding to pay him properly. We lived off coffee, coded through the night, and stretched every dollar like it was our last. The first year nearly broke me. I lost track of the nights I cried into my keyboard, wondering if my parents had been right about me all along. But every morning, I woke up and kept going. Then came our first real client, then another, and another. By the end of year 2, we had a team of 20. By year 3, we outgrew our office. Our software was solving problems no one else had dared to look at, anticipating issues before clients even knew they had them. I still kept quiet tabs on my family, LinkedIn updates, occasional whispers from a cousin or two. My father had been promoted to middle management. My mother still worked part-time at the library. They still lived in the same house, still worried about bills, still told anyone who'd listen about their ungrateful daughter who turned her back on family. Meanwhile, the startup they dismissed was becoming one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. And their worthless daughter? She was about to be on national television. 5 years after that last phone call, with my company standing on the brink of a major breakthrough, CNBC invited me for a feature. I knew they'd be watching. The morning of the interview, I stood in front of the mirror adjusting my blazer. The woman staring back at me looked nothing like the 23-year-old who'd once begged for understanding. My suit was tailored, my gaze steady, my presence undeniable. "Miss Carter, the car is downstairs," my assistant Michael called from the penthouse living room. The drive to the studio felt unreal. CNBC wanted to talk about Olive's latest AI-driven innovation, software that was changing the game in supply chain management. Our valuation had just hit $80 million. The number wasn't lost on me. "Just a heads up," Michael said, flipping through our prep notes. "They'll ask about the tech, but probably about your background too. Are you sure you want to go there?" I nodded. "It's time." Under the bright studio lights, I sat across from Sarah Chin, anchor of the network's morning business segment. Today we're joined by Olivia Carter, founder and CEO of Olive, one of the fastest rising names in tech. She began with a smile. "Your company just hit an $80 million valuation. That's extraordinary. Tell us how it all started." I took a breath. "Actually, Sarah, it started with $80. The studio went still. Not an investment, not a business loan," I continued. "It started when I lost my family over $80. Sarah blinked. "This wasn't in the notes. Would you be willing to explain?" So I did. I told them everything, the endless small emergencies, the pressure, the guilt, the moment I chose my future over a cable bill, the years of silence, the sacrifice, the fire it lit in me. When they cut me off, I said, looking directly into the camera, they thought they were punishing me, but what they really did was set me free. The $80 they demanded would have vanished in a moment. Instead, it became the seed of an $80 million company. By the time I left the studio, my phone was buzzing non-stop. The first message came from my cousin Sophia, the only family member who hadn't cut me off. "OMG, Aunt Linda and Uncle Dave are freaking out, calling everyone." Then came the blocked calls. I handed the phone to Michael. "Screen them, please." Back at the office, my team welcomed me with a standing ovation. They knew the story now, every piece of it. They understood why I worked the way I did, why I never gave up. But before the applause faded, Michael rushed in. His face was pale. "Your parents are downstairs." I stood quietly at the window, staring out over the city I'd helped reshape. "Send them up." Moments later, they burst through the door. My mother wore the same pearl necklace she'd worn since I was in high school. My father's face was flushed, equal parts anger and something else. Embarrassment, maybe, regret, hard to say. "How dare you," my mother hissed. "How dare you air our family's business on national television?" I turned slowly to face them. "Private business?" I repeated. "You mean the story you've been telling for 5 years, about your ungrateful daughter who walked away from her family?" "We came to give you a chance to apologize," my father interrupted, "to make things right." I let out a quiet laugh. "Make things right? Or do you mean now that I'm worth something to you?" "We're your parents," my mother snapped, eyes glistening. "We gave you everything." "No," I said, my voice firm. "You gave me an ultimatum, over $80, and now you're here, not because you miss me, not because you're sorry, but because I'm successful." My father's expression shifted, softening. Princess, let's not dwell on the past. We're family. We should be celebrating this, your success. My success? I walked to my desk and pulled out a small, weathered envelope. You mean the success you said would never happen? The dreams you called childish and worthless? I placed the envelope on the desk and slid it across to them. There's your $80, with 5 years' worth of interest. They looked down at the check, stunned. The silence hung thick in the air. We don't want your money, my mother whispered. We just want our daughter back. The daughter you had? I said quietly. She doesn't exist anymore. I met their eyes. You killed her the night you chose $80 over her. The woman standing here, I said, voice unwavering, built herself out of that betrayal, from the ground up. Please, my father said, his voice cracking, we made a mistake. Yes, you did, I said, and it turned out to be the best thing you ever did for me, because it showed me what I'm worth, and it's so much more than $80. I pressed the intercom button. Michael, please escort our guests out. Olivia, wait, my mother called out as security approached. What about family? I looked at her one last time. Family doesn't disown you over $80. Family doesn't reappear only when you're on TV. What you taught me that night wasn't about money, it was about value, my value. And that's something I'll never let anyone discount again. After they left, I stood alone in my office as the city lights flickered to life below. My phone buzzed with messages from relatives who had ignored me for years, now suddenly interested in catching up. I silenced it. On my desk sat a framed dollar bill, our first earned revenue at Olive Tech. Next to it, I placed the uncashed check I'd written to my parents. 2 pieces of paper, 2 very different kinds of value. That night, walking through my quiet penthouse, I didn't feel alone. I felt free. The $80 that cost me my family had given me something far more important. It had given me myself. Olive Tech kept growing. We expanded internationally. The company valuation shot past $80 million and kept climbing. But I never forgot that first lesson. Sometimes, the most profound gains come from what you refuse to give away. My parents never cashed the check. Last I heard, they'd downsized to a smaller home, still struggling with bills, still telling their version of the story. And maybe, one day, they'll realize the true cost of that $80 wasn't financial. It was the relationship they threw away. But I don't dwell on it. Instead, I focus forward. Every quarter, Olive Tech donates to organizations that support young people escaping financial abuse. Every year, we fund scholarships for students who've been cut off by their families, so they don't have to choose between survival and their dreams. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't payback, it's lifting others up. Sometimes, the smallest amount of money can change everything. All it takes is the courage to say no, and the strength to stand by it. For me, it only took $80 to learn I was worth millions. Not in dollars, but in self-worth. And that's something no one can ever take from me.